Hello, fellow innovators. This is Patrick Emmons.
And this is Shelley Nelson.
Welcome to the Innovation and the Digital Enterprise podcast, where we interview successful visionaries and leaders and give you an insight into how they drive and support innovation within their organizations. Today, we're thrilled to host Srikanth Geedipalli, a seasoned product leader in AI and banking. Srikanth currently serves as the Senior Vice President at Experian, where he has been instrumental in productizing and commercializing analytics and AI on a global scale. His impressive track record includes over 20 years of leadership in banking, FinTech, analytics, product, and consulting. As a part of his strategy to build a platform and software business at Experian, Srikanth spearheads initiatives that bridge the gap between artificial intelligence technology and practical business applications. He's tasked with productizing analytics to accelerate market entry, enhance scalability, and boost productivity. Under his leadership, Experian has seen substantial growth in its products and analytics capabilities, deploying them across a global landscape in a modern, tech-driven environment. Srikanth's approach involves leveraging growth hacking techniques to commercialize analytics products, ensuring they not only meet market demands, but also create new revenue opportunities. He actively fosters collaboration amongst cross-functional teams, including data scientists, technology specialists, and product managers. He does this to develop robust platforms that address complex business strategies. Moreover, Srikanth is vital in partnering with major tech companies and Silicon Valley startups, bringing state-of-the-art capabilities to Experian's offerings. This includes integrating cutting-edge technologies and methodologies to enhance the company's product suite, thus providing superior value to clients worldwide. Prior to his current role at Experian, Srikanth was the head of strategy at BMO, a strategy consultant at McKinsey, and an analytics leader at Capital One. Srikanth is equally distinguished academically. He's earned his master's in bioengineering from Cornell University, where he was recognized with the Excellence in Research Awards at international conferences. He also holds an MBA from the University of Chicago Booth School of Business, specializing in analytical finance, entrepreneurship, and strategy. Excited to have Srikanth share his profound insights on leveraging AI and innovative technologies to drive business growth and efficiency in today's digital age. So welcome to the show.
Thank you, Patrick. And thanks for that introduction. It feels funny to hear everything I've done over 20 years, but no, thank you. I don't do enough of these, Patrick. I do speak a lot at Experian hosted events and the industry events. This is my second time doing a podcast, but I'm excited about getting a wider audience and being able to speak to folks who listen and share my learnings that I've learned over the 20 years of my career in AI.
Well, we're honored to be the second podcast. Obviously, it won't be the last.
Yeah, and Srikanth, can you share with our listeners a little bit more about your role at Experian?
Thanks, Shelley. Before I do that, let me talk a little bit of my history and how that got to my current role at Experian, right? When I look back, I've worked at a few different companies, but it's really been three roles, I would say. One, as a banker. I've worked at two banks, Capital One and BMO, and then really served about 15 to 20 banks when I was a strategy consultant at McKinsey. So I just know the banking world inside out, everything from consumer banks all the way to capital markets, payments, investment banks, etc. My second role has been as a strategy executor, right? Head of strategy at BMO, and then doing strategy consulting for McKinsey clients in banking. And then finally, kind of what really defines me today is an AI analytics executive. Again, cut my teeth at Capital One Analytics and then set up McKinsey's risk analytics division. Now, partly by what I would call design and mostly by fate, those three things that I did brought me into my current role here at Experian. Now, as you know, Experian, most people would think of it as a data company, as the credit bureau company, right? Which is what it's known for. But over time, Experian has acquired a lot of other rich data assets in healthcare, assets in marketing. my role, I joined Experian about 4 years ago. I came in with the vision to productize all these data assets and built an analytics and an AI ecosystem around it, which is what I've been doing over 4 years, played different roles. My current role is head of product for our platforms and software business. Really, it is taking and building an AI ecosystem around our data for people to consume our data, to build analytics around it, and to build their own products around it.
Srikanth, I got a question. That sounds awesome. And many people have seen that, data is the new gold, right? And it has been. So I know as from a consumer standpoint, what Experian does, what are some of the markets or growth potentials that came out of that investment of productizing the data that you already had and then, applying AI to it? What kind of impact did that have? Was that what you expected to do, or were there any surprises that occurred on that journry?
The answer is yes and yes, Patrick.
Thank God, because it'd be a pretty boring podcast if the answer was no and no. Right? It'd be kind of short. Like, thanks a lot. Bad idea. Don't do it.
Indeed. So the answer, the yes and yes, is yes. We went in with a hypothesis and we proved it right. But during the journey, we also learned a bunch of things. And we pivoted as we went along and created net new businesses we did not even anticipate when we were beginning at this, right? So let me get into a couple of specifics there, Patrick. One, coming in 4 years ago, and Experian was already on this journey of modernizing our platforms. We took our data, this is like 20 years of customer data, right? The credit bureau data, and put it on the cloud on AWS, right? It was on mainframes. That created the right environment for me to come in and democratize analytics. The two areas that I want to call out is circa 2000, we had, the big players like Chase and Capital One and Amex investing heavily in analytics, huge data science teams, right? You're talking like 300, 400 data scientists all over the world. And they were way ahead of what a regional bank, what a credit union, and some of the fintechs could do in their investments. Experian's ability, right? And for me to come in and to democratize, how can they consume our data? How can they build analytics around this so they could afford credit to their consumers, right? Without making a huge upfront investment. My idea was to take that long tail of financial services lenders who would like to bring this modern technology and use it for marketing and underwriting their consumers. That has now been possible. What was only possible for the big, large banks now is affordable to a lot more of the clients. There are about, I would say, about 5,000 financial institutions in the US. That's quite a bit. Only about 50 of these had the capabilities to do this 5-10 years ago. I believe more than 50% of them, right? More than 2,500 of them can afford this because of the technology that Experian has built. That is one element, right? So it expands, it democratizes access. This has also created, again, when you think of this ecosystem, right? It is data and analytics in one place. It has made it easier to sustain it. It has made it easier to do this more frequently, right? Even the big guys would take longer to do this, right? They will take 12 months to do something that is super cutting edge. And they would then, because it's so long and expensive, they would do it fewer times. Because of the newer technology that Experian has built, they would now be able to do it in a month's time, right? Like, 10x faster than before. That has opened up new businesses. So they spend, without increasing their spend, they are able to use some of the technology that Experian provides more frequently, enabling higher impact.
That is pretty exciting. So quite a few people I know have made a lot of investments in productizing their data. And now AI has upped the voltage even more so in the last 12 to 13 months, but there's still the underlying challenges of quality of data, usability of data, accuracy of data, and then the legal ramifications of that productization. How are you able to achieve so much At Experience, a large organization, you mentioned others that maybe can't move as fast. What are some of the things that you've done to be able to accelerate or advance these things or innovate really in a large organization? What are some of the things that like you do to set the platform for you to be able to launch these types of products?
Yeah, Patrick, that again is another great question because those things you listed are real challenges
Mm-hmm.
that a lot of clients, not just in our industry, but across, right, in healthcare, in retail, in oil and gas suffer. Quality of data, access to data, compliance reasons, right? And as you know, I'm head of product for a platform business. And if I can articulate three value props that I share with my clients on why they should engage with me on my platform. There are three things really, right? One is connectivity. So my platform not only connects to Experian data, but has connectivity to various data providers that our clients need, right? We don't own every data set, but if they work on our platform, they get it. Number two, we have the analytical toolkit to solve issues around data quality, data wrangling. This is a constant issue for a lot of clients. They spend months and months of time cleaning up that data. Now, part of my product toolkit is those data wrangling toolkits, data accuracy and data quality, right? I create dashboards that give you how good is your data before you start training your models on that. So that ecosystem is embedded in the platform. And then the third part, which directly addresses the compliance thing, right? Financial services lending is a heavily regulated industry. When I build my products, compliance and regulations are embedded into these products. We would tell upfront, hey, here's the data, here's the use cases you could use it for, right? And when they do some analytics on it, the analytics IP we provided this has already been pre-approved and pre-validated by internal and external regulators. So that gives confidence to our clients to start using our platform. So the combination of data connectivity, the tools to clean up data, and then the trust and the confidence that they get that compliance is embedded in it just makes it easier for them.
So one of the things I'm curious about is, building new products, especially for established organizations that have very well established market value. They know what they're doing. To get those resources necessary to accomplish the three things that you just identified requires a pretty big commitment without confidence or knowledge or consider, not that there isn't confidence. I'm sure you did the business research, but it is a bit of a risk for a lot of organizations to even pivot a little bit. So is there things from how to build influence with people, how to create that confidence where it's like, we're going to do something new. And then how many customers are using these new products? Because I think that's the impact I think people would find very interesting is that was this more revenue from existing customers? It sounds like new customers in a different market.
Yeah, a few different questions, Patrick, you're asking. Let me break those down, right? I think there's a question on, how do you engender trust and confidence, right, for people to come, right? How do you solve that? It's almost like a cold start problem. When you start something new, how do you get people in to adopt, and then how do you scale it? The second question is, hey, where is the adoption coming from? Is it more to the existing clients, or you're getting new clients? And I believe there was a third one in which, like, how successful have you been? How many clients do you have now? And I think, let me take those in turn, Patrick, right? The first one is just, hey, how do we build trust? And how do we get now? There are a few things that I've had here at Experian that are huge tailwinds for me, right? We have been an established brand. We are the custodian of consumers' data, right? We have been a steward, and we have relationships with the clients we work with because they buy our data. That is a huge benefit as I go speak to clients. I have been an industry player, and I use my own relationships and the fact that I was in their shoes to build that empathy, right? That I know your problem. And that person-to-person relationship is a huge benefit that I have. And then finally, we are in this age of AI, right? Analytics, AI, and data. So that's a huge tailwind. Clients are cutting budgets across the board.
Absolutely.
That's true. The one area that they are investing in, right, selectively is AI products. And so that is a huge advantage for me because there is intent from their leadership, from their CEO, and from their board to answer the question on what are you doing in AI. And it is my role to provide answers to them. Now, using those things, those tailwinds do apply to me, Experian, but also all our competitors, right? So how is Experian differentiated in this? I'll go back to the platform business we are building, Patrick, right? The toolkit we are providing, the easy access to not just our data, but other client data, the compliance in there. That is a definite differentiator as I deal with some of our clients and how they hear from their competitors on what their pitch is. The second piece I would say is I run my team as a tech startup or a FinTech startup, to be more precise, right? There is this piece about I have a big vision. My ambition is to be large and to provide affordable, fair credit to all consumers, right? And enable our clients to do that. That vision is absolutely big, but I take a very much phased approach, a crawl, walk, run to anything we build. It is similar to, again, I take my inspiration from how big tech companies are built, right, in Silicon Valley. You don't go out and build this big thing. You build the one thing with one functionality that you get a few clients on, and then you take their feedback, you iterate, and you get, right? I want to put products out there for our initial clients to try it out, our friendly clients to give us feedback. I work with them to co-design these things and then build it out. So being able to run my little shop here at Experian as a FinTech, right? And then grow it out using the tailwinds I have as the big Experian brand and the sales force has been a huge advantage. The question on just, who are my clients and how much have I seen in terms of adoption? It is both. So I have a bunch of clients who already buy some of our data and analytics as a consulting service. I have been able to, on an approximately about 50% to 2x increase in revenue per client with those clients.
Awesome.
And as I said, there are about 5,000 lending institutions in the US. We have already data relationships with about 3,000 of them. Our analytics and AI business used to be much smaller, let's say about 500 to 1,000. We have been able to double that over the last 4 years. As we have democratized and made it faster, at a lower cost and higher quality outputs to our clients, we have seen adoption grow very fast. Definitely benefited from all those tailwinds I mentioned before.
That's fantastic. And yeah, the growth within, I think, a couple topics that I think are really instrumental for people to take away from what you just said. One, the niche, right? Like, especially when you're starting, everybody's like, how am I going to boil the ocean? And the goal isn't to win all of it. It's to find a very narrow but very deep niche that only you can own, right? That is like the story about Uber is always, whenever I hear people say, oh, we're going to focus on taking everything. Uber started out as a text message service, right? It didn't even have a user interface, right? And all it did was service, I think it was San Francisco was the only place where it started. And that criticality of really focus on owning this market, this specific need, and really becoming the best at that. And then you can see where some of those other things are at. I think that's tremendous advice as entrepreneurs and entrepreneurs are trying to think about a strategy standpoint. And the crawl, walk, run is something I don't think there's a day in my life I don't use that phrase. And Shelly and I met through a group called Project Relo, which is an organization that's committed to changing the narrative on the purpose for hiring military veterans and the leadership skills that they come in. And every time we've been involved with any of their missions, crawl, walk, run. So if there's ever a time where you see a universality between Silicon Valley mindset and the military, and it comes into the words crawl, walk, run, there's some value there, right?
Yeah.
Absolutely. In fact, I've not lived in Silicon Valley, Patrick, but I do follow a lot of the companies there. I partner with some of them. YC has been an inspiration. They, in fact, have this series, and your audience should check it out, right? They have something called the Startup School, where various successful entrepreneurs come and talk about how do you build a business, right? And some of these principles around, hey, it's not about the best product or the best UI, right? You want to build something quickly, an MVP, and get market feedback, and then iterate from that. That is kind of the philosophy I use. It becomes challenging in a bigger company, right?
I can only imagine.
Because I have a product portfolio to deal with. I have a lot more stakeholders to deal with. But getting that balance right, where I can keep, because those Silicon Valley companies out-innovate even the bigger size tech companies, right? The Googles and definitely the Experians of the world, they do out-innovate. And I want to see, with every other advantage that I have, can I bring those principles in and get that right balance? In fact, the president of my group here, he says, think like a small company. That is what I use with my team, right? Like, how do we have constant feedback? Small teams move fast, right? And just a high velocity of bringing things to market and updating those. So those are the principles we use, and it's worked great so far.
Well, and I totally agree with the think like a smaller business, but acting like a smaller business, I'd like to hear how you've been able to actually take the thinking to action, because I think, how do you create your own, I don't want to call it a subculture, but it's a different culture, right? Experian is about risk, right? It's a custodian of very important data. It has to have security. It has to have safety. These things are just born into it, right? Like we are about risk. And then how do you always think about a good organization has the brake and the accelerator, right? There's the accelerator that gets it to move. They're a little bit less, fear of risk. And then you've got the brakes to make sure you're not running off the rails. Is there something you've done to create that capacity or that the availability to act like a smaller business at Experian?
That is such a great question, Patrick. Let me start with this, right? We have, because of what Experian is, which you have articulated well, right? We are a custodian of consumer data. We have a lot of regulators looking at it. We have built in the processes and the systems to risk manage, right?
Gotcha.
Our finance teams, our compliance teams, our security teams, our technology teams have built in things which are foolproof. So it is tough for me or anybody in my team, unless we are totally ignoring things and downloading data in places we should not, which nobody would do, right? We cannot do that. We will not be over the line on making these mistakes. So the bias tends to be, do we overdo that, given we already have all these systems and checks in place? So my encouragement to my team is, hey, innovate fast and follow every single step of the processes that are needed. Don't break our approval chains, right? Do not break compliance approvals that are needed. But when it comes to, don't impose net new things on yourself, right? You want to test the boundaries of innovation. If there's 2 data sets you want to combine to use, do that, take that to compliance and get that approval and make that case with them. Do not stop short with saying, hey, they're not going to approve this, right? Like,
Gotcha.
Do push the boundaries on innovation. And now, if I just step back, just more the cultural point of innovation, maybe I would say 3 things there, Patrick, on how we did this. And even if I start with, like, it is a challenge. Like, I would accept that many companies have tried it. Like, even Google, as you know, suffers with this because they see upstarts do better, right? And this is because as teams get bigger, there are more stakeholders to please. There's more reasons to play it safe, right?
There's bigger risks. You've grown. Right? It's easy to be brave when there's not a lot of value in the business.
Exactly, right? This is like an option business, right? And I cannot provide the same incentives to my team that they don't have, startup equity. I cannot give them They do get Experian equity, but that's not gonna jump 15x like somebody at OpenAI would get, right? But my pitch to them is 1, with hearts and minds, and then 2, with processes and systems, right? With hearts in mind, I tell them like, hey, your reward here is not going to be in, $1 billion unicorn that's going to come out of that where you have 20% stake. It is going to be the learning you get out of it, right? You will believe you can build a business when you do this. And then two is when you do things faster, obviously the learning is faster, right? But then two, tying it back to the why and the vision of what we do, right? This is how we get to our vision of fair and affordable credit to everybody in a faster way, right? So those are two things, but more in terms of like tactically what we do. One, I empower my team, right? Hey, you go ahead and make decisions. Fast decision making is important. I will cover for you. I will give you that air cover because I will only need to do it a few times. There'll be a few times I'll need to walk back your decisions. But the trade-off between the speed at which you move for those 95% of times totally offsets those 5% of times where we'll need to go and fix it. So you have my full trust. Go make decisions and I'm there and you will not need to apologize for anything. So that is one cultural mindset, fast decision making and ownership mindset. The second kind of cultural aspect I kind of keep emphasizing with my team is founder mindset, right? You own this business. You're a product leader, but this will win or lose based on what you are going to do here. So take that founder mindset. And it is not just building a great product, it is adoption. Right? It is an option. So take a very, what you called out in my intro, the growth hacking principle. As soon as you have something, go speak to a client, see if they would subscribe. Once that sells, try and use all the data that we have at Experian to create a targeting list, right, of who else should you be doing this with. Go talk to all our salespeople who serve this. So just take that founder mindset and growth hacking principles to get cash flow in, because that is the oxygen you need to get bigger investment, right, and to get the kind of bigger buy-in from all the stakeholders who matter. So getting those early wins, super important to get liftoff.
That's awesome. Shelly, I know over at Madison, you've got a very distributed organization as well. Is there something that, from your experience, that you've seen that is fostered to allow that type of innovation to occur as well?
Yeah, a lot of things that Srikanth was saying, I was smiling because not only do we use the 80-20 principle, right? Focus on what matters, which is exactly what you were talking about earlier, but also failing fast and moving quickly and allowing businesses or teams, in your case, to run autonomously. And like you said, it's a learning environment. So yeah, I appreciate everything that you just shared.
Awesome. So curious, I think we just started in the AI world. I know we've been doing AI forever, right? Like I've been using Waze for like 7-8 years. It's not like this is right, but the expansion, the awareness, right? Like there was a moment in like after the .com bust where e-commerce still wasn't the end all be all. It was like DSL had to show up for my mom to buy something from Amazon, right? I feel like we're kind of at that point, but I'd love to get your perspective. Obviously, you're way deeper than I am. So from a Gen AI or even AI as a whole, what do you think we should be expecting? I know everybody's got dates and years, like, oh, it's going to be this by whatever, but I'd love to get your perspective on like, what should our listeners be thinking? What should they be preparing for? What are the threats? What are the opportunities?
Yeah, let me take that and split into three parts, right? So where is Gen AI heading, right? What are some opportunities and what should our listeners personally do right now? On the first part, where is Gen AI heading? Like, I truly believe this is a transformative technology, right? AI always has had a bit of hype around it. Mm-hmm. What Gen AI has done in the last, 18 months, right, has just made it possible of what we have been talking about. This is truly transformative. People call it like on the same level as, the internet boom, right, late 90s of what internet did. And I cannot agree more. Like this is going to democratize just a lot of things. It is the gold rush days, right? And everybody and every company is already asking, what is their Gen AI play? Every single individual, any young professional should be asking, what is their Gen AI kind of professional strategy for themselves? Now, where is this heading? Like, I think of it as two ways, right? Like today, we don't talk about internet as a product, right? Anymore. Like it exists. And Gen AI will be that, right? Every single product that we use will have Gen AI embedded in it. You're already seeing this, right? Like we are on a Zoom call right now. There's Gen AI in this. Our iPhones are going to have OpenAI's technology in Siri soon, right? Google has and Microsoft has Gen AI in all their products. So,
well, for $10, I can have AI in Slack. I just got offered today. I don't really know what it's going to do for me in Slack, but it's
yeah,
there to your point of like it is the penetration is ubiquitous.
it is ubiquitous, right? So we will, and you're paying $10 extra today. In the future, it's going to be standard. Like it is there. It is part of the feature. We won't even talk of that. Just the way we won't talk about internet as a channel anymore. Like Gen AI will be there everywhere, embedded in every single product. It's a functionality. It's code, right? In the end. So that I think we should absolutely expect. And the implication there is for product managers and engineers everywhere, you have to think about, not about what my Gen AI strategy is like, can this specific thing, this user story that I'm writing, can this benefit from the Gen AI technology that already exists, right? That is a question. You need to do it for your clients because your clients are going to ask. And that question might be superficial, right? They might say, hey, what Gen AI stuff you have? But if you look beyond that, it's just a better product with a better experience with Gen AI. Now, there's a second part of it, right? Hey, are there going to be net new products or net new businesses that will get stood up just because we have Gen AI? Absolutely, yes. And the one I'm most excited about is just agents, Gen AI agents, right? I believe, right, in not too distant future, I'm thinking like 2, 3, 4 years at max, each one of us will have a personal assistant. We have some voice assistants today, right? Alexa and Siri. And when I've tried it, like it's okay. I do not use them for making decisions for me, right? I can check on Alexa, what's the weather in Chicago today? I might even check what is the cost of Chicago Bears ticket this Sunday, right? But I'm not using it to, hey, buy me a ticket for Bears versus Packers for this Sunday, because I do not trust it enough. I do not know what seats it would get at what price, right? I think that changes. I think in 2 years, we will be able to give it instructions saying, hey, buy me 3 tickets for this event or buy me an airline ticket, right? Because it knows your preferences. It knows what kind of seat you want, what airline you fly. You tell it, and you will have the confidence to make that decision. The other place where I use a bit of Gen AI today is write some of my articles, write a document. But what I have felt consistently lacking is it does not. It does a good job on content. It does even a good job structuring things, but it does not get my voice, right? And there's a certain style I write things. I believe in 2 years, there will be a Srikanth specific agent where I tell it a few things. It will write things in my voice, right? And will give me suggestions real time as I do that. And that is the business I am like, which does not exist today, which I personally am learning about. And that would be a totally net new billion trillion dollar business coming up. Now, just getting back to, hey, what do our viewers should do? I mean, if you're not using Gen AI, you absolutely should. There is no other, read all articles you do, watch all YouTubes you do, or listen to podcasts. It is not a substitute for getting your hands and feet wet with this. You have to, you could build your custom GPTs today with OpenAI, right? Feed it all the documents and it will start using that to create your own API, right, on Gen AI. You should be able to use Gen AI to write documents, to validate your code or write net new code, to use for your creative pursuits of, graphic design or whatnot. If you are not using it, because there is no other better way of learning and getting and to understand this technology. So start using that both in your personal and professional life. And if you have kids, there's a lot of fun ways to engage your kids, right? With games and with coding and with just even creative writing that you could be doing. And you absolutely should be doing that.
Awesome. Srikanth, thank you so much for taking the time. That's really great stuff. I love wrapping on the end where it's like how to get kids involved, how to, get the next generation to help move the ball forward. Because I do think it's one of the most critical things, right? That it's amazing to me how much opportunity there is for the next generation to get involved in tech. When we were all younger, it was not as openly available. It was, you had to have like a uncle or aunt or somebody in the business to to engage with it. And the proliferation of like entry points for people, I think, is tremendous. And with AI and like the explosion really of what's possible, it's amazing to think where we'll be in 15, 20 years. It's almost unimaginable. We were before the call joking about some of the bad TV shows from the 80s. And as you were talking about AI, I was thinking about the robot from Lost in Space, right? Warning, Will Robinson. But, that might actually come true, right? Robots that obviously wouldn't look like that. But I was thinking as you were talking about having that individual agent, or just think about how many times we'd have like a Zoom call and like you'll have some kind of drone while you're going for a walk as opposed to, right? But then that drone can actually send emails in your voice and your tone and things like that. So it's going to be crazy.
It indeed is. And just the pace of innovations, just at such a steep slope, right? This is the worst we will ever be in our Gen AI technology, almost by definition, right? And, the pace of innovation is just so fast. What took 20 years for us to reach here is going to happen in the next 1 year. That I'm sure of. And we get to play a role in that, which is exciting.
Well, again, thank you so much for taking your time. Maybe in a year we get you back on again and we can talk about, or maybe we'll have your agent on. It won't even be you next time. You'll just send, Srikanth number 2, right? And we'll have him on.
You know what we should do, Patrick? We'll have the agent and me sit next to each other.
Right.
You ask the question to the agent, and then you ask me if the agent was right. So we could do a real-time test of how it is representing.
I can't wait.
I'm wondering, can we make the agent more likable? Because I could use that. It's not so much I need somebody to answer questions like, no, Pat, don't say that. Pat, don't say that. Don't say that. That's what I need. I need somebody to just sit on, like, don't say that, Pat. That's not good. So awesome. Again, thank you so much. We also want to thank our listeners. We appreciate everyone joining us.
And if you'd like to receive new episodes as they're published, you can subscribe by visiting our website at dragonspears.com/podcast. or find us on iTunes, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts.
This episode was sponsored by Dragon Spears and produced by Dante32.